So you're looking to soundproof a room for drums. Now this soundproofing project will be a little bit more challenging than just soundproofing a solid wall. Now, if you're looking to soundproof a solid wall, you might as well check out my last week's video, but this video will go into a lot more than just soundproofing a wall or soundproofing a door, because you're looking to get rid of a lot more noise. You're not just looking to get rid of airborne noise, which is the noise that the drum makes when the drumstick hits the drum head, but you're also looking to drown out the structural noise, the noise that the drum vibration makes when you're hitting the drums, and the vibration that goes down through the floor goes all around into the walls. That's a little bit more complicated than just drowning out noises like voices. So there's a little bit more that you'll have to go through, and since it's a lot of noise, you'll have to seal up a lot more than what you would typically have to do if you're just doing a DIY soundproofing project. But it's not impossible to soundproof a drum room, and you can actually do it yourself if you have a little bit of experience. So let's begin. The first thing that you should soundproof, of course, is the window. Well, let's hope that you don't have a window in the room that you will be using for drums. If you do have a window that you do want to soundproof because of the noise coming in or the noise going outside, then the best way to do it is just to completely block the window, to completely shut it, or to just change it with triple pane window if you just don't want to completely get rid of the window itself. The thing is usually when you're soundproofing a room for drums it's mostly the walls and the doors that you'll want to look at. The windows is usually not as important, but if you are wanting to soundproof because you don't want to disturb the neighbors, then yes, you'll have to either plug the wall completely or use a thicker window, something like a triple pane window. It is a little bit more expensive, but that would take care of the window if you don't want to block it completely. All right, so now let's jump to what's important, which is the door and the wall. Now the door, usually you would just seal around the door and at the bottom, but since you're trying to drown out a lot more noise, you'll need to completely replace the door, because usually inside a home you would have a hollow core door. So to know the difference, all you need to do is knock on the door. If it feels hollow, it's a hollow core door, and if it feels solid, it's most likely a solid core door. Now, the thing is, usually you just have one door leading into a room, but to really soundproof this entryway, you'd need two doors. Now, a door on the inside and a door on the outside of the casing. And the types of doors that you should use are solid core doors. Now, solid core doors, they're a little bit more expensive than a hollow core door. And what's nice with the solid core door is that you can buy usually the same type of door that you already have to replace, so it doesn't look out of place. You can go a step further and buy a solid wood door or a fiberglass door. Those would be a little bit more expensive, or in some cases a lot more expensive, but you will see a little bit more sound blocking with those types of doors versus a solid core door. If you want more information on that, video right there will talk more about fiberglass doors and solid wood doors and how much they cost and how they work. So now that you have your two doors installed, usually you would just add some acoustical sealant around the door casing and where the door meets the casing, and also some weather stripping where the door meets the casing. But to go a step further, you should install a door seal kit. A kit like this will cost more money than just buying a weather strip and some acoustic sealant, but it will also work better at sealing all the gap around the door and door casing. The thing is also they do last longer, because the weather strip that you add around the door, it's a self-adhesive weather strip. It does last quite a while, but also a door seal kit will last for the life of the door. So that's one thing to think about. If you're going inside that room often and you want something that will stay for good and that will keep working perfectly, then a door seal kit will be a better option than just adding a self-adhesive weather strip and your acoustical sealant. I'll have links in the description below of everything I talk about in this video to make it a lot easier for you to find exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so now that you have your 2 doors installed, your door seal kit, now it's time to look at the wall. Now, usually you'd want to soundproof a wall and not have to rip out the drywall, but in this instant, it's time to rip out the drywall and actually decouple the drywall from the studs by adding something called a resilient channel. But before doing all that, just rip the drywall, remove the drywall. Hopefully the drywall's not even there already, but if it is, you'll have to remove it. And the first thing that you'll need to do is go right where your electrical outlet boxes are. And now that they're exposed, it's time to add some putty pad around the electrical box. This type of application was first invented basically for a fire prevention, so that if there is a fire inside the electrical outlet box, if it ignites in there, so the putty pad would act as a barrier so the fire wouldn't have time to easily spread throughout the house as it normally would. Thing is, also it acts as a sound blocker because it blocks all of those holes that are meant for different size electrical wires. So this is a cheap way to soundproof your electrical outlet boxes. Do the same thing with your light switch boxes, and just by blocking that, you'd be surprised at how much noise you're actually stopping from coming inside or going outside the room. So after the putty pad, add your acoustical insulation. It's a lot better to add an actual acoustical sound deadening insulation than just your regular fiberglass insulation, because you're soundproofing for a lot more than just noise. You're soundproofing for vibration also, and this type of insulation acts as a good sound deadener. Now, and this type of insulation is usually made up of mineral wool, and video right there if you want to know more about this type of insulation and how it works. Is it safe to use? Is it safe for exposed walls? And everything you want to know. So, video right there. And now once that's done, it's now time to add the resilient channel. Resilient channel will be what decouples the wall from the studs. Now, the reason why you want to decouple the wall is all that vibration that comes through the floor, up the wall, that goes through the wall. Now you want to deaden that, and you want to stop that vibration from going into the next room. The resilient channel, there's a rubber that goes between the resilient channel and the studs and the drywall. So now this rubber will absorb that vibration and not letting it go through the studs and through the wall of the next room, if that makes any sense. The only thing with the resilient channel though, it's good to hire somebody that's installed it in the past, because if you just get one screw that goes through your drywall and through the resilient channel and into the stud, you've basically connected the whole wall into the studs again, and it kind of defeats the purpose of having the resilient channel there in the first place. So, but if you are going to install it yourself, I'll have a link in the description below of an article on my website that will explain to you how to do it. So now that the insulation is installed, it's now time to add something called mass-loaded vinyl. Now usually you'd add this between 2 layers of drywall to soundproof a wall a lot better, but since the wall is exposed and you'd have your resilient channel installed, I would recommend installing the mass-loaded vinyl. Mass-loaded vinyl, it's really heavy. Usually you'd buy it in 1 pound per square foot or 2 pounds per square foot. But in this case, I'd go with the 2 pounds per square foot. It'll be a lot heavier. If you're installing this yourself, you'll want to buy smaller rolls. Buying a very large roll will save you money, because the more you buy, the more you save, but the rolls can end up weighing hundreds of pounds. So having a friend, having a helper will save you money, and also will make it possible for you to install the mass-loaded vinyl. Mass-loaded vinyl also acts as not only a sound blocker, but a sound absorber, which you will definitely need for soundproofing drums. Now, the type of drywall you'll want to connect to the resilient channel is not your typical 1/2-inch drywall that you would normally have inside a home. You'll want something a little bit thicker with a 5 and an 8-inch drywall. Now, this drywall is just a little bit more expensive than the 1/2-inch, but it does work a lot better at blocking sound. You'll want 2 layers at least, or maybe even 3 layers of this type of drywall, And what you'll want in between the drywall is an acoustical compound, but something a lot cheaper than an acoustical compound that I found works almost just as good, and as I said, is a lot cheaper, is a certain type of carpet glue. Just make sure to completely cover the sheet with the carpet glue. And yes, just because it's glue, it doesn't mean that the drywall will actually, well, yes, it'll stick there, but you still would need to use drywall screws. So just because it's carpet glue, you still use drywall screws. But just by spending just a little bit more money and adding that carpet glue in between the 2 or 3 layers of drywall, it will help drown out a little bit of noise that could potentially keep coming through. I would still buy a couple of tubes of acoustical sealant to place around the electrical outlet box. Now, acoustical sealant, the reason why it's a little bit more expensive is because it's a compound that stays rubbery over time and it doesn't crack. So with all of the vibrations going around playing drums, regular caulking over time will get hard and will crack, and those cracks will let noise through. Now, acoustical sealant will not do that. So where you'll want to add this is to just seal the crack between the drywall and the electrical outlet box. You already have the putty pad covering the electrical outlet box, but you'll still have the crack around the electrical outlet box and the wall, and you'll want to cover that and seal that with acoustical sealant. And then you'll want to add acoustical sealant around the entire wall, even where the floor meets the drywall, because any crack that you leave open will let noise through no matter how small the crack is. All right, so now that your soundproofing project is basically complete, now it's time to treat inside the room. Of course, you'll want to add a lot of furniture inside the room or just a lot of carpeting, plush objects to absorb the noise. And just using acoustical foam will not really do the tricks. You want to use acoustical panel. They help absorb a lot more noise. Now, professional panels do cost a lot of money, especially if you want to buy a lot of them. You can build your own by watching that video right up there, and they work just the same, and it just costs you a lot less money because you can buy some material and build it yourself. Now, hopefully you'll still have some mass-loaded vinyl left over to place underneath your drum set. And hopefully there won't be anybody underneath you. If there is somebody underneath you, if you have, now that would really suck. So what you will have to do there is to do the exact same thing that you did to the wall down to the ceiling below. You have to completely decouple it. Just like we did to the wall, you'll have to go underneath and do the exact same thing to the ceiling. Hopefully you don't have to do that, but even if you do need to stop a lot of the vibration coming down from the drum set into the floor, adding the mass-loaded vinyl between the floor and the drum set mat will help stop a lot of the vibrations coming down. But of course, the best way to stop a lot of the vibration is to place your drum set on a separate surface and have an air void between the drum set and the floor. But that's for another video. Comment down below. I'll try my best to answer every soundproofing questions. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. Until next time.